John Evan, Jethro Tulls, keyboard legend. Back in the late 60s and right through the 1970s, every time you saw Jethro Tull in concert, they seemed to go up another level. Judy Sims, Disc Magazine, the 2nd of May, 1970. Talking about Jethro Tull's Long Beach concert, I suppose I should tell you that the group sounded fantastic. They're carrying their own PA system this time, and the difference in sound quality is obvious and better. The show was paced from the roaring Nothing Is Easy through mostly new songs from the Benefit album, each song featuring one or two solos and amazingly tight group playing. Each musician sounds better, more self-assured, more adventurous every time I see this group. 3 weeks earlier, Ian Anderson had announced that his old friend John Evan would be joining the band. John had played piano and organ on the band's current album, Benefit, and Ian had managed to persuade John to give up working for a degree as a chemistry student and come and play with Tull for initially a year or maybe 2. But this is what John had to say. In some ways, I have regretted joining the band, in that it has taken me out of an environment which I wanted as a career and into show business which I did not want. I recorded Benefit as a session musician, spending 2 hours in the evening adding piano to their tapes, which I thought wouldn't do any harm. But then Ian kept phoning me, saying it was impossible for him to carry on with just 4 musicians, as they couldn't get over on stage the way the music was evolving. I was eventually persuaded to join them with 2 thoughts. It would be better for me to sit at college for my degree with money behind me, and I also believed that Jethro Tull would have broken up if I hadn't joined them. They felt they had reached their peak with the existing lineup and couldn't face the thought of regression. The extra member has meant that a great deal of strain has been taken off Martin. Before, he was quite unable to take any proper solos because he was working so hard to keep the music together. Now in our stage act, we do 5 or 6 numbers, and during those, 4 of us take a solo, all except Glenn Cornick. The reaction has been very favourable, and it's very noticeable how much Martin has improved just over the last 2 months. But during this time, the amazing thing is, John hadn't played piano much for the previous 2 years, until Benefit and those sessions, and it was only around the end of June, in a break in Tull's touring schedule, he managed to put in some serious practice. John Evan. I phoned the manager from America asking him to find me a piano for a week, and he's been true to his word. I got home to find a studio with piano had been booked for me for 7 days, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And there I'm stuck with all my old Beethoven and Debussy sheet music, trying to get the real feel of the instrument again. Later that year, at the band's Carnegie Hall concert in November of 1970, we got a wonderful display of the superb musician John Evan is, on his solo piece, By Kind Permission Of, where John pieces together Debussy, Beethoven, Satie and a hint of Rachmaninoff. And, as he did throughout his entire musical career, he shows impeccable touch, feel and technique. John had actually met Ian way back in Blackpool, Lancashire, I think in about 1964, when they formed their first schoolboy band, The Blades. The Blades lasted a short while until they became the John Evan Smash. Apparently the band were named after John, as he was the only member who had transport. He owned a van. John then decided around 1967 that the music scene wasn't for him and left to study. Now, with the addition of John and the endless touring, Tull were honing their skills as showmen and musicians to ever greater levels. 1971 brought along Aqualung, and the band achieved even greater heights of success and popularity, now becoming a major arena act. John's keyboard work, piano, organ and mellotron is all over the album. In fact, his famous piano intro to Locomotive Breath was written while the rest of the band were at lunch. Now that's often used as a measure by Tull fans, with keyboard players who had followed John into the band. If you can play that intro well, if you can pull it off like John, you'll do. On stage, John would wear a white suit with a pink and yellow polka dot tie, causing Ian to introduce him as everyone's favourite ice cream salesman. He'd also adopt this Harpo Marx persona. I don't think in all the years, all the concerts I saw John play, I could ever remember him actually talking. He would just use a range of facial expressions, at times coming over as an amiable, simple buffoon, which was far, far from the truth. In 1974, John even had a urinal put on the side of his keyboard setup. As Ian explained to us in great detail, John has a very weak bladder and does not want to get caught short mid-concert. John's greatest moments for me came with 1972's Thick as a Brick and in 1973 with A Passion Play. I urge you to listen to Thick as a Brick, just following the keyboards. John's work on Hammond organ and piano shows he was right up there with the Emersons, the Wakemans, the Tony Banks and all the other keyboard wizards of progressive rock. In fact, if truth be told, John came up with a lot of the music for the album Thick as a Brick. John was always critical of his playing ability and his technique, but you know what? It will do for me, mate. On A Passion Play, John plays synthesizers for the first time on record. And like every member of the band on the album, he puts in a stellar performance. It's a shame that there isn't any good footage of the band playing A Passion Play live. You would see John flying round his bank of keyboards like a whirling dervish, just a white blur. Then something strange happened. As Tull moved away from the concept albums and the immersion into fully fledged prog rock, I guess that was the backlash from Passion Play, John kind of got sidelined. Yes, I know most of the solos in Tull were taken by Ian Anderson on flute and Martin Barr on guitar, but there were parts of every album where John got to shine, got to show off his chops. Like on War Child, he seemed to have been relegated to a backing musician, though give him his due, he did manage to get the accordion onto a major hard rock, progressive rock band's album, so I'll give him that, because I never would have thought that was possible. And for me, the same sort of pushing him to the background happened on Minstrel in the Gallery and especially on Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. Now in 1976, the band brought in David Palmer as a second keyboard player, trying to reproduce the orchestral parts that had adorned so many classic Tull songs over the years. Dee did that brilliantly, and in tandem with John they created a rich textured layer for the rest of the band to bounce off, especially in concert. But John seemed to be pushed even further into the background. Now don't get me wrong, I loved all those 70s albums by Tull, and now we have the Stephen Wilson remixes which help to bring out all the nuances of the players. You can hear exactly what each great musician brought to the table, but for me it was a shame that such a great player was so sparingly used. Now in 1980 Ian Anderson famously broke up that classic Jethro Tull lineup, and John moved on. He went to form a construction company and now lives in Australia. But I don't think he plays much, which again is a shame. He did around 1980 start a band with Dee and drummer Barrymore Barlow, and the album Tallis has finally been released this year, and I say to my shame I've not got round to hear it yet, but I will do. So there you have it, a short video about me going on about one of my heroes from the past, Mr. John Evan, or Mr. John Evans, however you like to say it. And you know what I regret is that he never pursued his musical career. He went off and did something else, because this guy is a true giant of keyboard playing. The piano, the organ, synthesizers, he had it all. And a thank you from me, and I know all the army of Jethro Tull fans, for all the great memories, all the laughs, all the great music. Thank you, John. Thank you for listening. Please take care, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you in the next video.